Hello, welcome to AFCast. I'm your host Malcolm, and today we're going to be talking a bit about Halo Infinite, a little bit about what we know. This is kind of a follow-up of my previous episode 343, Why It's So Bad, Why It's So Good. And I'd actually like to know your guys' opinions on why it's so bad or so good, if you guys have an opinion at all. Yeah, so first of all, Halo Infinite is going to be the sixth in the Halo series, and that's been confirmed, so we don't have to be making a debate about that. It is made by 343, once again. So this game could turn out good or bad, up to you. But yeah, so first I took a look at the E3 trailer, I put together some notes, and I figured I'd share them with you. I haven't really done much research online, itself, to look for any confirmation for stuff, except for the fact that it's six in the Halo series. So I've just kind of looked at the E3 trailer, and then also they came out with a behind the scenes recently, so I also did a little bit of I looked at that as well, and I made some notes off of that. But yeah, so first off with the E3 trailer, a lot of this was kind of to show off their new Slip Space engine, and I can understand that because honestly, it's really beautiful. It's really well done, and I think it would work well. It's going to work out really well for them. So anyway, so we start off looking up through a vertical cavern, and we can kind of see something sliming on the walls. That can just really be anything. But also, some people are thinking it's flood or something like that, possibly starting to consume more of the Halo ring. And yes, we are on a Halo ring. And then we go to these deer-like creatures that are drinking some water off the ground. So yeah, so it's pretty cool that we have some wildlife now. We don't really have much wildlife. I mean, in a couple of the older Halos, we kind of have some stuff flying around. That's pretty much it. Yeah. So just some weird bird-like creatures that we can see flying around the Halo rings and stuff. Not much actual wildlife though. But anyway, then we have some trees with fire underneath, a smoldering fire, kind of. And you can kind of see an energy blast from a Halo ring, from the Halo ring, kind of being set off in the background behind the tree. And this is one of those things that are from the communication towers that you see a lot in Halo 1 that shoot those beams of energy or something like that. I don't know exactly what they are, but it looks like plasma basically. And also this fire that's smoldering underneath, we can also see in another cavern that we go to with foreign writing on the wall that people have decoded to enemy within. And so the fire is actually illuminating this message that's on the walls. And so we're kind of getting hinted at a possible civilization that is on this Halo ring, which is a cool idea, or even these Marines that we'll see later in the trailer are kind of taking camp in these caverns. Next, we see some kind of rings that are sandy and a bit broken, and it's kind of sitting in the sand and stuff. And then we can kind of see something glide past in the background. It looks like some kind of vehicle, maybe it's a creature. I don't really know when I saw this. But yeah, so next we see a massive creature walking behind a tent. It's possibly a UNSC tent, once again saying the Marines are kind of trying to take shelter and stuff on this new ring, which leads to the possibility that we're actually stranded on this ring during Halo Infinite. And also, the shaking actually causes this walkie-talkie to fall over, and this walkie-talkie is kind of making noises, which could be possible for Morse code for an SOS. I don't know, I haven't really tried to actually depict it at all, and I didn't look up if anybody else did, so you guys might be able to find stuff on that. It could also just be making random noises. That's also a possibility, but sometimes stuff like this in trailers could have a lot to do with the actual game. Anyway, so then we see some footprints in a jungle. We see some big footprints and also some small footprints, I'm pretty sure. It's kind of hard to see because it's pretty muddy. It's rainy and stuff like that. There's also some greenery around. And yeah, so then we see some rhino-like creatures. They start running, everything like that. So more wildlife that is on this ring, which once again is really cool. And we also get this look inside of a crashed pelican that's on the surface of the ring. And somebody zoomed in really far and made it clear and everything like that. And the console says 2556. And so we are all thinking that it's the year that it takes place. I don't know if this has been confirmed or not, but a lot of people are thinking that this is what it is. Next, we get a look at the ocean that's on the ring, or look at an ocean. I don't know if there's multiple. and we can see this sentinel-like thing moving up on a structure that is on the ring. Yeah, so I have no idea what this structure is that is on here, but it does look interesting. Next, we see some Marines walking and leaving behind some flares. It's like a group of 3 or 4, something like that. And it keeps zooming away, and they're walking through another set of like those rings that I was mentioning earlier, and this really beautiful landscape, rolling hills, mountains, a lake, everything like that. And then we also see some like trees kind of in the area and stuff like that. And then you can see these like weird things that are above the trees that are kind of moving towards these Marines. I wasn't entirely sure what they were at first, but then I found something that said that looked like sentinels, like kind of those tiny working class sentinels that you'll see a lot in Halo 2 when you're trying to capture the sacred icon when you're playing Arbiter, like the really little ones that don't really do anything. You can kind of see them kind of like moving towards the Marines because those sentinels, I believe, are like naturally curious or something like that. And so yeah, so it's pretty cool. And we can go further, like we can zoom out further, and we see Master Chief in his classic armor. This is the point where everyone freaked out and everyone knew it was Halo. It was great. Yeah, and then we saw some like Warhog driving, looked really smooth, really well done. And also some like of those communication towers, like I mentioned earlier, in the background, shooting those like beams of light into the air on this Halo ring. And then we start to zoom out to see the entire side of a Halo ring, while still kind of on the ground, if you know what I mean. And we can actually see some like lighting in the actual side of the Halo ring. Like it looks like there's circuitry or some kind of like maybe tunnels that are being lit up, but it's very visual and it's like kind of pattern like. And so I'm kind of wondering if like part of the landscape has actually been wiped out, or possibly like ripped open or something. Like that's the reason we can see this light, because there's no other Halo ring that we've been on where we've been able to see this light that looks like circuitry very clearly. And so it's kind of made me a bit curious because you can still kind of see like a landscape, like if you were to look out on our globe, like if one of those pictures from space, you can still see like the landscape and oceans and stuff. I feel like now I'm kind of blanking, but like I feel like you could still see kind of that stuff. You could also see like the circuitry and stuff. So it was kind of confusing me, but yeah, that's what I saw, and that's a possibility. Just to throw it out there. Also, at the very end of this, they introduce that they're using a slip space engine. And then after that, we see Master Chief puts a AI chip in the back of his head. No one knew what this chip was, if it was Cortana, anything like that. And then we see, but like there's classic art. So yeah, I guess we see like a bunch of the classic art, and also the music was classic as well. And it gave us that nostalgic feel, and it was really nice. And yeah, so that made me really excited for Halo Infinite. And like I said in 3.4, when I was doing my 3.4.3 review, this game could be the best game, and them stepping it up by actually doing the art and music to be nostalgic, along with Master Chief's actual classic armor on a Halo ring, which we haven't really seen at all in the past couple of Halos. It's just really amazing because, you know, we actually get to like play Halo how it was, but also continue the story that was actually left off in a really great place. So I'm really excited for that. So next, I looked at the E3 trailer behind the scenes. So some of the stuff that I was kind of confused about or skeptical of will be a bit clearer after I had looked at this. So yeah, let's go through it. So first thing is they said that they won't be seeing anything new, but that's wrong because a lot of people have, of course, picked stuff out of this. I even picked stuff out of this. And the very first thing that we see, the very first slide that we see, is a new text on the wall in a cavern once again, kind of like Enemy Within, except for this had a different message, and I believe people depicted it to be Zeta, which proves that we are on Zeta Halo, which is one of the Halo rings. And so yeah, so it definitely proves that we're on Zeta Halo, which a lot of people were thinking that we were, just based off of canon and lore and stuff like that. We also see a little tiny amount of somebody kind of like walking with a player model on a very basic ring with some of those communication towers, holding what looks like a possible new Magnum that actually looks really cool. And of course, we've had this long evolution of Magnums, so good to change it once again. But anyway, then you see this guy. This is not in game at all, but you see these guys kind of like on a mat, and one of the guys is holding a mat out in front of them, and they run straight at another possible stunt person. I'm guessing they're a stunt person, and kind of ram into them with that mat. And this guy does a completely natural fall and everything like that. And I'm actually thinking that might be for the rhinos. Like the rhinos might actually be like that person that was holding the mat, because they motion tracked the person that got hit, but not necessarily the person that had the mat. So I'm wondering if that was just to get the simulation down of being hit by the rhino, and then they would do the rhino later or something like that. Or even just for a cinematic that's later on, like getting hit by an energy blast or plasma shot, or like Marines getting hit by something as well. So it's just different things to think about. Another thing is that the item that I thought was a structure, like underneath the water, that the Sentinel was looking at, whatever, was actually a warthog, because they showed a bit of transformation, kind of how they set up each scene, and they would do kind of like a picture of the first like setup that they had, and then and then the second setup, and then third setup, until it kept going until they got to the final product. And the very first thing was a warthog, and then the warthog was kind of like under something, and then the warthog was underwater, and then it was decayed, and then it was like the Sentinel was looking at it, all that stuff. So this was actually a warthog that was under the water. At least I'm assuming. They could have changed what the object was during one of those transformations, but I'm still going to assume that it was a warthog. And then the object that I spotted moving in the background behind those rings was actually a warthog as well. So I'm kind of proud of myself that I found that object. But yeah. And after that, we see like not after that, but well, in the E3 trailer behind the scenes, it was after that. But so right after we go through that vertical cavern, that's right at the beginning of the E3 trailer, we also zoom out of this giant mountain. Now it's really hard to see the mountain because it's dark. You can like see its silhouette and everything. But in the trailer where they're doing those slices and stuff, they hadn't had the lighting in there yet, and it looked like a Forerunner structure that had made part of this mountain. And of course, this isn't strange for a Halo ring, but it definitely had that old art style for Forerunner technology, and this goes for the communication towers as well, which I'm really excited for. And yeah, so it's really nice to think about that they're actually kind of adding in these structures that we saw in previous Halos and that we were able to walk through and stuff like that. And that'd be really cool if we could actually see that and play that in the actual game when it comes out. Yeah, I think it'd be really cool if we could see some of these landscapes in the game when it comes out and when we play it, because that would actually be really cool if we can kind of relate the game to the trailer itself besides just the art style. Next, I'm going to do like a little bit about like the legendary ending that was in Halo 5. So the legendary endings, essentially every single game has a legendary mode, and if you complete it in legendary mode, then you'll get like this special scene at the end. Sometimes it's hinting towards the next game, sometimes it's just funny, sometimes it's just like this just a random scene that's extra. But this one was right after, the big suspense with Cortana being the mantle holders and everything like that. They created all that, forming some kind of weird gang. But essentially it was Cortana humming. It was kind of in the middle of space. We saw a halo ring. It's kind of just floating around in space, and then all of a sudden it starts to light up around the outside of the ring. Like it seemed to have started to just like activate or something like that. We don't see any pulses going into the center of the ring to actually create that weapon, but we definitely saw it activate in some way. It lit up. And then we hear this really loud roaring in the background that people have actually matched up that sound to the flood. It definitely sounded like it was the flood from my experience in Halo. And yeah, so it's really exciting to think about that the flood is coming back, especially in Halo Wars 2, Awakening the Nightmare. Or not Awakening the Nightmare, I think that was Halo 4. Whatever it was, essentially the Flood came back, and you could actually play as the Flood in Halo Wars. And so it's all these messages that essentially we're getting the Flood back in Halo 6, Halo Infinite, whatever you want to call it. And it is possible that we'll actually have new Flood forms that we actually see in Halo Wars. But yeah, so that's really all I have time for today. So for the term of the week, we have muzzle block. So essentially what muzzle block is, basically a muzzle block is literally when somebody blocks the muzzle of your gun with their body. That's basically what a muzzle block is. Essentially you put up a gun right next to their chest or right next to their head, anything like that, and then you shoot. That's what a muzzle block is. Now, the thing that's really frustrating that you'll probably hear from most people is when people get really mad when they muzzle block someone, but it doesn't kill them. So, yeah, so that's what a muzzle block is. Obviously, it works most of the time because you're shooting a bullet point blank into someone. But, yeah, anyways, game on.